This story begins in 2016 in the Argentine city of Mendoza, tracing the long-awaited journey of 21-year-old Marina Menegazzo and 22-year-old Maria Jose Coni. What started as an adventure soon became one of Latin America's most high-profile investigations over the past decade. The tragic fate of these young women not only shook their home country of Argentina, but also raised significant questions about safety, justice, and the treatment of women in Latin America. Marina Menegazzo and Maria Jose Coni were two vibrant young women with promising futures. At the time of their journey, 22-year-old Maria Jose was studying economics at the National University of Cuyo. Meanwhile, 21-year-old Marina was pursuing a degree in speech therapy at the Aconcagua University. Both were deeply committed to their communities, working as volunteers for an organization that helped people forced to live on the street for various reasons. Friends and acquaintances described Marina and Maria as cheerful and kind-hearted individuals who were very close to their families. Their bond with each other was equally strong, as they often shared their aspirations and dreams. This trip was a chance for them to explore new places and create lasting memories together. On January 10, 2016, Marina and Maria embarked on their much-anticipated journey. Their travels took them to various destinations, and their route could be traced through Maria's Instagram posts. On January 13th, they arrived in the ancient city of Cusco, the former capital of the Inca Empire in Peru. Their adventure continued as they explored the region, posting pictures from notable landmarks. By January 15th, they had reached a railway bridge near the Machu Picchu hydroelectric power plant. Machu Picchu, often referred to as the city above the clouds, is one of Peru's most famous attractions and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The girls spent several days in this area, with Maria posting photos until January 19th, when they bid farewell to Cusco. 4 days later, on January 23rd, the girls arrived in Ecuador, where Maria shared a picture from the beach of Montanita. Over the next 10 days, they traveled along Ecuador's coast before heading inland. Their journey seemed to be filled with joy and discovery as they explored new landscapes and cultures. On February 4th, Maria posted an image from San Antonio, followed by another from Baños on February 6th. By February 10th, she shared a photo with all 4 girls who had initially started the journey together, marking the end of their collective travels. While their friends returned to Argentina, Maria and Marina decided to extend their vacation by another 10 days. They revisited Montanita, a place that had left a positive impression on them. The last photo posted by Maria on February 22nd showed her with Marina, capturing a moment of joy and companionship. That same day, the girls contacted their families in Argentina, informing them of their plans to return home soon. They intended to take a bus from Ecuador to Lima, Peru, spend the night at a friend's house, and fly from Lima to Santiago, Chile, on February 25th. From Santiago, they would take a bus back to Mendoza. However, they warned their families that it might be difficult to reach them by phone for a couple of days due to poor signal in the area. When days passed without any contact from Marina and Maria, their families grew increasingly worried. There was no activity on their social media accounts, and attempts to reach them were unsuccessful. Marina's sister was the first to raise the alarm on social media, posting a photo of the girls with a plea for help. The families sought information from the airline to confirm if the girls had boarded their flight, but were told that such details required a court order. The friends who were supposed to host Marina and Maria in Lima reported that the girls never arrived. Desperate for answers, the families contacted the emergency services in Ecuador and the Argentine consulate for assistance. On February 27th, the Argentine authorities sent the girls' fingerprints to Ecuador. This action was prompted by a grim discovery made 2 days earlier on February 25th, when an unidentified woman's body was found in Montanita and transported to Guayaquil. Comparing the fingerprints confirmed that the body belonged to Maria Jose Coni. 2 days later, on February 27th, police found Marina Menegazzo's body only 43 yards from Maria's. Both bodies were discovered in plastic bags, wrapped with duct tape, in a desolate area near the ocean shore. The circumstances of their deaths were horrifying. Maria had died from blunt force trauma to the head, and had other injuries, including a broken femur and a toe, as well as marks on her wrists indicating she had been tied up. Marina's cause of death was 6 stab wounds to the neck, and she also had similar marks on her wrists. The autopsies revealed traces of a powerful psychiatric drug in their blood, suggesting that the girls had been drugged without their knowledge. The police concluded that the girls likely did not take the drug voluntarily, indicating foul play. These findings pointed to a calculated and brutal crime. In a surprising turn of events, just 24 hours after discovering Marina's body, Ecuador's president and minister of the Interior announced that the case had been solved. They arrested 33-year-old Alberto Segundo Mina Ponce and 39-year-old Aurelio Eduardo Rodriguez, who confessed to the murders. The suspects' confessions detailed a chilling sequence of events. They claimed that on February 22nd, they met Marina and Maria at a bar where the girls, having had their money stolen, were looking for water. The bar owner confirmed this encounter. According to Ponce, he offered the girls a place to stay for the night, which they accepted. Witnesses, including a taxi driver, corroborated that the girls went to Ponce's house. However, this version of events raised many questions. The girls had plane tickets from Lima to Santiago, so why would they try to hitchhike to Lima and risk missing their flight? Moreover, the official narrative lacked explanations for the drug found in their systems and the marks on their wrists. These inconsistencies fueled suspicions among their families and the public. Marina and Maria's families doubted the official version of events. They could not understand why the girls, who had credit cards, would suddenly be without money and resort to hitchhiking. The presence of the psychiatric drug in their systems suggested that someone had drugged them. Moreover, the only witnesses to their last known activities were those who confirmed the authorities' version. The families also questioned the timeline of events, particularly why the bodies were found 2 days apart, despite being only 43 yards apart. They found it implausible that the girls would seek help from strangers rather than fellow Argentine tourists in Montanita. The brother of one of the victims reported seeing used syringes at the crime scene, which mysteriously disappeared before official photos were taken. These suspicions led the families to believe that the true perpetrators might be involved in human trafficking, and that the Ecuadorian authorities were covering up the truth. The case quickly garnered widespread attention, with public reactions ranging from sympathy to victim blaming. Notably, Ecuador's Deputy Minister of Tourism, Maria Cristina Rivadeneira, made controversial comments suggesting that the girls' way of traveling invited danger. Her statements, alongside those of other public figures, sparked outrage and accusations of victim blaming at a state level. The Ecuadorian government later apologized to the families and dismissed Rivadeneira from her position. One of the most notable responses to the victim blaming came from a Paraguayan student, Guadalupe Acosta. She wrote a powerful Facebook post on behalf of Maria and Marina, which went viral. The post began with the haunting words, "Yesterday I was killed," and called out the societal tendency to blame victims rather than seeking justice for them. It resonated deeply, garnering 700,000 reposts in the first week. The trial of Ponce and Rodriguez began on August 8, 2016. The prosecution presented witness statements and over 200 pieces of physical evidence from the crime scene, including the girls' belongings and biological fluids. During the trial, Ponce recanted his confession, claiming he had been coerced by the police. Rodriguez also changed his testimony, implicating Colombian drug dealers. The prosecution faced several challenges, including the change of prosecutors 3 times, which delayed the process. Despite these obstacles, the court found both Ponce and Rodriguez guilty, sentencing them to 40 years in prison, the maximum penalty under Ecuadorian law. In November 2016, Ecuadorian authorities arrested another suspect, 34-year-old Jose Luis Perez Castro, whose DNA was found at the crime scene. Castro's defense argued that he had lived in the house weeks before the incident, and that his DNA was present due to a dental infection. However, his defense crumbled when his dentist testified that Castro had no such infection at the time. Further complicating his defense was Castro's social media activity from prison, where he maintained his innocence. Despite his protests, Castro was also sentenced to 40 years in prison. The convictions did little to quell the family's doubts about the investigation. They continued to believe that the true perpetrators were still at large and that the case might be linked to a larger criminal network. The journey of Marina Menegazzo and Maria Jose Coni began on January 10, 2016, filled with the excitement and anticipation of exploring new territories. These two young, adventurous women set off from their hometown of Mendoza, Argentina, with plans to travel through various countries in South America. Their journey, meticulously documented through Maria's Instagram posts, offered a vivid window into their travels. Their first major stop was Cusco, the historic city that was once the capital of the Inca Empire. Arriving on January 13th, the girls were captivated by the ancient city's vibrant culture and breathtaking architecture. Maria's Instagram feed during this time was filled with images of narrow cobblestone streets, colorful markets, and impressive Incan ruins. On January 15th, they embarked on a trip to one of the world's most iconic landmarks, Machu Picchu. This ancient city, perched high in the Andes Mountains, left them in awe. The Instagram posts from Machu Picchu showed the girls amidst the misty ruins, with wide smiles and a sense of wonder. They spent several days exploring the area, absorbing the history and beauty of this UNESCO World Heritage Site. After their enriching experience in Peru, the girls continued their journey, arriving in Ecuador on January 23rd. Their first stop was the picturesque beach town of Montañita. Known for its vibrant nightlife and stunning beaches, Montañita offered a different kind of adventure. The Instagram posts from this phase of their journey depicted sun-kissed beaches, lively street scenes, and the joy of discovering new cultures and landscapes. Over the next 10 days, Marina and Maria traveled along Ecuador's coast before heading inland. Their route, though not precisely detailed, included various destinations that showcased the diverse beauty of Ecuador. Each post was a snapshot of their adventure, capturing the essence of their journey and the bond they shared. As Marina and Maria continued their travels, they revisited Montañita, a place that had left a positive impression on them. The last phase of their journey was marked by a mix of relaxation and exploration. On February 4th, Maria posted an image from San Antonio, followed by another from Baños on February 6th. By February 10th, she shared a photo with all four girls who had initially started the journey together, marking the end of their collective travels. While their friends returned to Argentina, Marina and Maria decided to extend their vacation by another 10 days. They returned to Montañita, where they had previously enjoyed the beach and local culture. The last photo posted by Maria on February 22nd showed her with Marina, capturing a moment of joy and companionship. They looked happy and relaxed, seemingly without any worries. On that same day, the girls contacted their families in Argentina. They informed them of their plans to return home soon. Their detailed plan involved taking a bus from Ecuador to Lima, Peru, where they would spend the night at a friend's house. From Lima, they had a flight booked to Santiago, Chile, on February 25th. From Santiago, they planned to take a bus back to Mendoza. They warned their families that it might be difficult to reach them by phone for a couple of days due to poor signal in the area. This was the last communication their families received from them. February 22nd marked the last known contact Marina and Maria had with their families. When days passed without any further communication, their families grew increasingly anxious. The lack of activity on their social media accounts, particularly Maria's Instagram, was unusual and alarming. Attempts to reach them via phone were unsuccessful, heightening the sense of dread. Marina's sister was the first to raise the alarm on social media, posting a photo of the girls with a heartfelt plea for help. This post quickly gained traction as friends, family, and strangers shared it widely, hoping to gather any information that could lead to their whereabouts. The families sought information from the airline to confirm if the girls had boarded their flight, but were told that such details required a court order. As the days passed without any news, the sense of urgency escalated. The friends who were supposed to host Marina and Maria in Lima reported that the girls never arrived. This crucial piece of information intensified the search efforts. Desperate for answers, the families contacted the emergency services in Ecuador and the Argentine consulate for assistance. On February 27th, the Argentine authorities sent the girls' fingerprints to Ecuador. This action was prompted by a grim discovery made 2 days earlier on February 25th, when an unidentified woman's body was found in Monteñita and transported to Guayaquil. Comparing the fingerprints confirmed that the body belonged to Maria Jose Coni. 2 days later, on February 27th, police found Marina Menegazzo's body only 43 yards from Maria's. The tragic discovery of their bodies brought an end to the anxious waiting, but also marked the beginning of a painful and complex investigation. Both bodies were discovered in plastic bags, wrapped with duct tape, in a desolate area near the ocean shore. The circumstances of their deaths were horrifying. Maria had died from blunt force trauma to the head and had other injuries, including a broken femur and a toe, as well as marks on her wrists indicating she had been tied up. Marina's cause of death was 6 stab wounds to the neck, and she also had similar marks on her wrists. The autopsies revealed traces of a powerful psychiatric drug in their blood, suggesting that the girls had been drugged without their knowledge. The police concluded that the girls likely did not take the drug voluntarily, indicating foul play. These findings pointed to a calculated and brutal crime, sparking outrage and sorrow, both locally and internationally. On February 25, 2016, the tragic discovery of Maria Jose Coni's body was made near Monteñita, Ecuador. Her remains were found inside a plastic bag, concealed in a remote, desolate area near the ocean shore. The discovery was the culmination of a frantic search that had begun days earlier, when the young women's families reported them missing. The scene was gruesome, and the circumstances surrounding her death were immediately suspicious. Just 2 days later, on February 27th, another body was found only 43 yards from where Maria's body had been discovered. This time, it was identified as Marina Menegazzo. Both bodies showed signs of severe trauma, indicative of the brutal nature of the crime. Autopsy reports revealed the horrifying details of their last moments. Maria had suffered blunt force trauma to the head, with other injuries including a broken femur and toe, as well as marks on her wrists that suggested she had been bound. Marina's autopsy showed that she had died from 6 stab wounds to the neck and bore similar marks on her wrists. Additionally, both girls had traces of a powerful psychiatric drug in their bloodstreams, suggesting they had been drugged without their consent. These findings pointed to a calculated and violent crime, setting the stage for a complex investigation. The investigation quickly led to the arrest of 2 suspects, Alberto Segundo Mina Ponce and Aurelio Eduardo Rodriguez. Initially, the men confessed to their involvement in the murders, providing details that matched some of the evidence found at the crime scenes. Mina Ponce's DNA was found on the victims' bodies, which seemed to substantiate his confession. However, as the investigation progressed, several inconsistencies emerged. The families of Marina and Maria began to question the official version of events. They raised concerns about the thoroughness of the investigation and the possibility of coerced confessions. The evidence, while compelling, did not seem to fully account for the complexity of the crime, leaving many unanswered questions. The families' doubts were fueled by several troubling aspects of the case. The marks on the girls' wrists and the presence of drugs in their systems suggested they had been restrained and incapacitated against their will, contradicting any narrative that implied voluntary involvement with the suspects. These details, combined with the violent nature of their deaths, led the families to suspect that more than the 2 arrested men might be involved. Alternative theories began to circulate, including the possibility of human trafficking. The brutality and precision of the crime, along with the remote location where the bodies were found, seemed indicative of organized crime rather than a spontaneous act of violence by 2 individuals. The case sparked widespread public outrage, not only because of the nature of the crime, but also due to the response from some officials. In the aftermath of the murders, victim-blaming statements were made by certain public figures, suggesting that the girls had somehow put themselves in danger. These statements were met with fierce backlash, both in Ecuador and internationally. A viral Facebook post by Guadalupe Acosta, a friend of the victims, highlighted the injustice of blaming the victims and called for a more compassionate and thorough investigation. Her post resonated deeply with the public, amplifying the call for justice and accountability. Media coverage intensified, scrutinizing every aspect of the investigation and the officials' handling of the case. Public sentiment was overwhelmingly supportive of the victims' families, who were seen as fighting not only for their daughters, but also for broader justice and the safety of travelers. The trial process was marked by numerous challenges and controversies. The prosecution's case relied heavily on the initial confessions and the DNA evidence found on the bodies. However, the defense argued that the confessions were coerced and that the evidence was not as conclusive as it seemed. Changing testimonies from the suspects further complicated the case. At times, they recanted their confessions, adding to the confusion and raising doubts about the integrity of the investigation. The involvement of Argentine police helped to bolster the case against the suspects. But questions about the thoroughness and impartiality of the investigation persisted. The case took another dramatic turn with the arrest of José Luis Pérez Castro. Initially, he maintained his innocence, claiming no involvement in the murders. However, his defense quickly collapsed under the weight of the evidence presented against him. Pérez Castro's connection to the crime became apparent, leading to his conviction. His arrest and subsequent conviction added a new layer to the case, suggesting that the crime was more complex than initially thought. The involvement of multiple suspects pointed to a broader network of criminal activity, possibly linked to human trafficking or organized crime. The tragic deaths of Marina Menegazzo and Maria Jose Coni remain a somber reminder of the dangers that travelers can face and the importance of thorough, impartial investigations in bringing justice to victims and their families. The case continues to resonate, highlighting issues of safety, justice, and the need for systemic changes to protect vulnerable individuals. The tragic case of Marina Menegazzo and Maria Jose Coni has left a profound impact on public perception and legal practices across Latin America and beyond. Their story has become a poignant reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by travelers and the urgent need for systemic changes to protect them. The brutal nature of their deaths and the subsequent investigation exposed significant flaws in how such cases are handled, prompting widespread calls for reform. The public reaction to the case, fueled by social media and passionate advocacy from the victims' families, highlighted the damaging effects of victim blaming. In the wake of the crime, some officials made statements that suggested the victims were somehow responsible for their fate, sparking outrage and condemnation. This response underscored the pervasive issue of victim blaming in cases of violence, particularly against women, and the need for a shift in societal attitudes. The case has also led to increased scrutiny of legal practices and investigative procedures. The inconsistencies and controversies that arose during the investigation highlighted the necessity for thorough, transparent, and unbiased investigations. The involvement of Argentine police and the eventual conviction of additional suspects demonstrated the complexities of such cases and the importance of international cooperation in seeking justice. Justice for Marina and Maria has become a symbol of the broader fight against impunity and the struggle for a legal system that treats victims with dignity and fairness. Their families' relentless pursuit of truth and accountability has inspired many and emphasized the critical role of public pressure in ensuring that justice is served. Ultimately, the Menegazzo and Coni case has served as a catalyst for change, igniting discussions about traveler safety, the integrity of legal systems, and the pervasive issue of victim blaming. It is a stark reminder that justice is not only about punishing the guilty, but also about honoring the dignity and humanity of the victims. As their story continues to resonate, it serves as a call to action for greater vigilance, compassion, and justice in the fight against violence and impunity.